Tricia, you're now a wine journalist. How did you go about getting your first commission to write? And after that, what worked best in doing this?
Well, it's funny you should ask that, because what happened was I went back to the software business and became a vice president of another company. And I was talking to one of my colleagues in the UK, in London, and I just happened to mention I had this wine writing interest. He said, well, one of my friends, who's a UK expat, moved to Florence, Italy, and has started an English-speaking magazine there on travel for the people that came to visit, in Florence. And he introduced me to her, and we got, developed a rapport, and I said, would you give me a shot? And so the Tuscan magazine was my first article, and I wrote several for them, and I was their only American journalist. So I wrote some on wine and health and how to host a wine tasting in your home, several different articles. Unfortunately, they didn't stay in business, but it got me a jump start. And so I started pitching some local magazines, because you should always start locally as well. But now I had a few articles under my belt. So I went to a couple of the local Texas magazines, and one of them was McKinney magazine, where I live. I'm proud to say we were voted one of the best places to live in the US a couple years ago. Anyway, so I wrote a couple articles for them, and so one career gave me a gateway from just mentioning it to a colleague to another. And in the meantime, I started attending the Symposium for Professional Wine Writers in Napa Valley. It's sponsored by the CIA and the Napa Vintners Association, but people from all over the world come there. And the nice thing about that program is they have editors and publishers from other magazines as coaches. So I was coached by people from the Wall Street Journal, Worth Magazine, Food, Wine and Travel. And I just kept using the magazines and pitching from the Tuscan magazine and McKinney magazine to move forward. But I would say my big break occurred with Prime magazine, because I've been writing for 4 years. I was one of your first writers, and I think that that consistency and practice of every single month, offering an article, and was really great for my craft. And in the meantime, I just kept studying wine. And I've moved up the ladder in the wine certifications. I'm in a level 4 advanced sommelier now, which is really right under a Master of Wine level. As a matter of fact, I recently attended in the Rioja region of Spain last week a symposium for Masters of Wine. So they actually allow me to go to their symposiums.
Oh, fantastic.
In the meantime, I've just interviewed a lot of really great winemakers like Miguel Torres, Chris Mondavi, Celia Welch, Catherine Hall. I've got her wine with me here, Hall Wines, and she was Clinton's ambassador to Austria before she and her husband decided to buy some vineyards in Napa Valley. So just some really interesting people I've interviewed. So now I write for Prime. And I've been going to a lot of the Napa Valley auctions, and there I was asked to do a story on the premier Napa auction last year and write it up for what we call an industry magazine, and that's the Somm Journal. So I write for the Somm Journal, who, and the publisher also owns The Clever Route, and that's about farm to table restaurants. So I've done some articles on craft cocktails, because I also cover spirits, and written about farm to table magazines. So it's really been great, because I've gotten a variety, and some of my articles are longer now too, and more extensive. So I don't have the problems pitching like I did before. I really have quite a few outlets for my writing now.
That's brilliant. So I'm going to sum up your tips there really were use your existing networks and keep talking about what you're doing, because you never know when there's a bit of business coming. And then go out and network and pay to get involved in courses and training and because you meet the people who can coach you and get contacts there. And then say yes to things, because they build up and keep moving on, and then you get more, and then you can start pitching once you've got that credibility.
It's really true, because breaking into journalism is not easy. It's kind of a good old boys network, and you have to establish credibility and work hard at it.